Alphabet and Apple are two stocks that have underperformed most of the Mag 7 peer group for the bulk of this year, until this quarter, that is, with Google up 17%, best performing from the group, even outperforming Nvidia up 16%, and Apple up 10%, outperformed by Tesla and Google, but comfortably outperforming Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta up 3% and 5% respectively. We're seeing Wall Street finally pick up on Google's AI potential, and the flattish to negative narrative around Apple reverse for the better, with the two potentially teaming up to put AI into the world's gold standard for smartphones, the iPhone. Apple is in discussions with Google to use Gemini in order to power a revamp of Siri voice assistants. Google is working on a custom AI model that would be the foundation for next year's new and improved Siri. To be fair, Apple is shopping around for a third party that could boost its AI capabilities because it's falling behind in the race. Earlier this year, the company spoke with Anthropic and OpenAI that would be the brainpower behind Siri, but with the deadline to make a decision approaching, it increasingly looks like Google is going to win, in my opinion. This also wouldn't be Gemini's first rodeo within smartphones. Gemini is deeply integrated into the Samsung Galaxy ecosystem, replacing Samsung's Bixby and extending into wearables like the Galaxy Watch and Buds, not just phones. It's not easy to draw a straight line to how much Samsung's sales have benefited since the integration, but it's easily feeding into Samsung's place as the #1 smartphone seller, according to the IDC. Google got extremely close to getting Gemini into iPhones earlier this year. Google CEO Sundar Pichai said that the company expected to see a deal between Gemini and Apple by the end of this year back in April. Google is competing with OpenAI's ChatGPT on this front, so it's far from a done deal, but I think the odds of seeing this announcement are high, and a positive stock price reaction should follow. Apple needs this, more so than Google, which has its eggs spread in a couple of different baskets, all utilizing what is an anticipated 85% capex on AI infrastructure this year, up around 62% from its spend of $52.53 last year. The only company outspending Google on capex this year is Amazon, after Google raised its fiscal year 25 capex this quarter from $75. Google is now pushing its spend into search, YouTube, DeepMind, and TPUs, Google Cloud, Waymo, and Network. If Apple chooses Gemini for Siri, that would make it much more competitive with other smartphones in the field, considering that with an uncertain macro backdrop this year, there's little reason outside of innovation for your average Joe to upgrade his phone. The IDC's forecast for smartphone sales this year has already decreased from 2.3% growth to 0.6%. In my opinion, what will drive sales is innovation, not need. And without a shiny AI integration, I don't think Apple will be able to see a above-seasonal performance for its iPhone sales into next year. The iPhone 16 now ranks as fourth in terms of added AI value after Samsung models and Google Pixel. Apple's Siri upgrade is also long overdue. The update was scheduled for spring of this year, but got pushed out a year due to engineering setbacks, which got Apple AI chief John Giannandrea sidelined from the project. Now, the project is managed by Craig Federighi and Mike Rockwell, who worked on software and Vision Pro within the company, respectively, and are part of the development team run by Adrian Perica, who kickstarted entertaining outside help while working on in-house models. The models Apple is working on are Linwood and Glenwood. Still, even with this team, Apple is facing internal drama with Ruoming Pang, the team's chief architect, leaving for Meta last month for a $200 million package and several members of the team, including Frank Chu, following him. So with Apple stuck between a rock and a hard place, having a hard time keeping team momentum alive and team members present, plus convincing markets that it's going to catch up in the AI race, it looks like they're leaning towards third-party solutions, ones we expect to involve Google. Back in April, Federighi hinted at plans of building Gemini into Apple Intelligence. He said, "We want to enable users ultimately to choose the models they want, maybe Google Gemini in the future. So even if we see Apple take a multi-sourced approach to their AI integration this year, we think it's extremely likely that Gemini will be at the top of that list." The idea is that Apple is trying to find someone to help out with the foundation of the Siri update, and simultaneously is open from my understanding, to incorporating other AI models to be called upon when Siri hits a wall. That's what the company did with ChatGPT last year. Siri was made to both tell you, let me Google that for you, and let me ChatGPT that for you. The reason I'm excited about seeing a deal between Apple and Gemini is because Apple has been cozier with ChatGPT in the past. So the fact that in spite of that business proximity and obvious favoring we've seen from Apple for ChatGPT, whether in its App Store, which Musk has complained favors ChatGPT over Grok, or with integrations done already, Apple is back at talks with Google. The rumor is that the first choice is Anthropic, but that financial terms are making Apple look elsewhere. So I think something is going to give, particularly considering Apple and Google have been in talks since last March. Not to mention that Google has the upper hand in the broader AI race from the point of view of data scraping. In fact, OpenAI and Anthropic rely on a company called SERP or Search Engines Results Page API, to scrape data from mainly Google and other search engines. We should see a deal come out of this that'll do Apple a world of good as it stares down a less than friendly competition with Samsung. Google would also massively benefit from a deal with Apple. It's pretty straightforward. For example, Google pays billions of dollars to Samsung to integrate Gemini, and it's getting a lot back on its investment. The integration gives Google, one, scale with the potential of being incorporated into 37% of the total smartphone market share across Samsung and Apple, and two, data and feedback that comes with scaled interactions with its AI model, and three, more traction is coming back to its search and ad revenue. So it's a textbook win-win. The real risk we see here is regulatory, considering that being added to iPhones would make Gemini the dominant AI model for smartphones. Google is already under heavy scrutiny for its monopoly over search, and we could see that spill into the role Gemini plays on smartphones. The other factor is the fact that Apple and Google are rivals within the smartphone space. Google actually held its annual launch day of new phones and watches earlier this month, introducing the Pixel 10 phone and the Pixel Watch 4. The latter includes a new Tensor G5 chip made by TSMC with Kai 2, Google's first magnetic charging accessories. The reason why I'm not too stressed about this is that the two already have a search partnership. Similar to its deal with Samsung, Google pays billions annually to make sure it's an option on Apple devices. The bigger concern here is antitrust scrutiny from the U.S. Justice Department, which is already sniffing around each partnership deal. Each of Google and Apple is getting to a better place than a quarter ago. Gemini's capabilities are getting more attention, with the announcement of a new suite of AI and cloud services to speed up federal government adoption of AI, with Gemini for Government priced at as low as 47 cents per agency. Pichai said on X the following: the company is also making its AI mode on search available in 180 different countries after its initial launch in the US, adding new features of collaboration, including the option to tap share and let a contact pick up where you left off with AI mode on. Its TPU business is actually ahead of the other Tier 1 players in developing its own custom AI ASIC, and Google's side projects, including Waymo, are outscaling Tesla's robotaxi comfortably. My favorite piece of news around Google is the 6-year cloud computing deal signed with Meta and valued at more than $10 billion. Meta will basically use Google's cloud servers, storage, and networking to boost its own capabilities as it builds out its own infrastructure. Why is this a big green flag? Because it means Google won this deal against the likes of Amazon's AWS and Microsoft's Azure, although the two outrank Google Cloud in terms of cloud computing market share. Turning to Apple, there is less shiny news here, but there are signs that the worst is behind us. This quarter, Apple reported revenue above street estimates and bit the bullet on a $1.1 billion cost from U.S. tariffs over the period. Management is still guiding for growth to the mid to high single digits, which is ahead of the 3.27% growth expected by the market. iPhone sales were up 3.5% from a year ago to $44.58, ahead of the expected $40.22 BHSs, a much-needed sign that lackluster sales have hit a bottom and are coming back. Apple's most difficult region has been China sales, which also came in better this quarter with revenue of $15.37 BHSs, ahead of the expected $15.12. This number should do better next year with the integration of AI capabilities, which have made iPhones a second choice to Chinese alternatives that have executed much better on AI. Even with a murky macro backdrop, iPhone sales should continue to do better into the back end of the year on the seasonal impact of the iPhone 17 launch and interest rate cut that should stimulate higher end customer spend. The chart showcases iPhone sales since 3Q21, highlighting that we're revisiting growth levels closer to pandemic levels. When it comes to valuation, both stocks are pretty cheap for their big picture position. Google trades at a forward PE of 20.76x versus the group average of 14.63x, and EV sales of 6.20x compared to the average of 1.91x. On the other hand, Apple trades at a forward PE of 30.83x compared to its sector average of 23.53x, and EV sales of 8.06x versus a sector average of 3.19x. Both trade above their respective peer group average but are growing into the higher multiple, more so now, particularly with rate cuts hinted at by Fed Chair Jerome Powell this past Friday at Jackson Hole. The chart pegs the Mag 7 players on a forward EV revenue basis and shows the peer group valuation recovery on the 6-month chart. The theme this chart tells is higher multiples for stocks with attractive positioning in AI, Nvidia, Meta, and Google are gaining investor enthusiasm, while Apple and Tesla are losing it. Both Google and Apple have performed well, and I expect both to outperform the S&P 500 in the mid to long run. Google and Apple working together should revive investor excitement in Apple's AI growth story and Gemini's potential. A better interest rate environment should also help boost customer discretionary spend, which will translate well into Google and Apple, with higher dollar ad spend on the latter and more incentive to upgrade smartphones for the former in time for the September iPhone 17 launch. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.